Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy! Today I have a cutoff. The piece I did last week, which was the end grain cherry bowl, this piece is what I cut off from that to so that I could start clean. I cut this off of the end of the log because it had some cracks and poor chainsaw cuts and like that in it. And I got to looking at it and I thought, you know, I just hate to waste wood. I just hate it. What could I possibly make out of this? So I came up with something. We're going to make a trivet. So what I've done is I found center, and the way I found center is I balanced it. I have this little tiny hole right here for my center. And if I stick my awl, my very sharp awl, in that hole, we get a balanced piece of wood. Now I don't know how balanced it's going to stay because of course I'm going to mount this on my woodworm screw this way. And I'm going to work on the bottom side, and I'm going to put a recess in here so that I can turn it around and hold it on the chuck. And I'm just going to flatten up the bottom and make it parallel with the top, turn it around, and then I plan to make a series of coves and beads on this surface. I don't know how many, I don't know what tools I'm going to use. This is another ill-prepared piece we're going to try this week. So my first step is to drill a hole. I've set a depth stop on my drill. I want to go 1/2 inch deep for my woodworm screw. And we'll step over here to the lathe and mount it up. Now this piece of wood is about 8 inches across this way at the longest point and about 7 inches at the narrowest point. I'm going to, and it's 1 1/4 inches at its narrowest, thinnest, and about 2 inches at the widest. About 1 inch here, or 1 1/4 inches here, and about 2 inches here. And that's why I've only drilled a 1/2 inch hole. And this woodworm screw protrudes 3/4 inch. So I have this 1/4 inch thick disc that I'm going to put on here to take up some of that difference. So I'll just have a 1/2 inch bite, but I think that's going to be enough. I hope I've drilled my hole deep enough. So I locked my spindle down, and now we'll just see if this screws on. If I could see it. Get some light on the subject here. So this of course is still end grain. Yeah, I think that'll hold okay. I don't plan on getting in line with it anyway. I don't know what kind of speed we're going to do. We'll find out here in a minute. Well, it looks like we can spin this at about 1,000 RPM. It went out of balance at about 850, and I kept on going a little higher and got it back into balance, or a little less vibration. Let's put it that way. It's certainly not in balance. So the first thing I'm going to do is just flatten off the bottom, make it parallel with the other side. And I'm going to do that with my mask and face shield on and a 5/8 inch bowl gouge. I think I'm going to sharpen up. I did not sharpen before I started. Now I want to be careful here because I don't want to lose my bark. And of course it is picking it up every time it comes by here. So I'm just taking light cuts. I said I wanted to make it flat, but maybe what I want to do is put a little base on here. I'm not sure. Going pretty slow because it is end grain. I'll just keep at it. Almost. Now I could bevel the outside edges up a little bit so that when you pick this trivet up, you can get your fingers under there. But I just don't have a lot of thickness, but maybe it wouldn't take much, I don't know. still have to put my recess in here. That's going to be fun. Yeah, maybe I should bevel it up a little bit. Well, now it's beveled up on the two long ends, on the long end here. Not, well, maybe a little tiny bit here. Not at all over here. Looks like I'm just not going to get it over here unless I go a lot higher, and I don't really want to do that. Well, that gives you two obvious places to pick it up, I guess. Put your fingers under there and pick it up off the table. Yeah, we'll just go with that. I'd like to, I've got a good start of a rim here for it to sit on, or a base for it to sit on, but I need to come in this way a little bit so that I've got a 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch raised area here. Doesn't have to be much, just something. And that's something, and I think that's good. We want it to be stable, so I went with the 1/4 inch, I guess. Okay, it's time to put in our recess. Now I just need to mark out for my recess. So I'm just taking these dividers, looking at the center and kind of coming close. I'm pressing in the left one. I'm way too far in, so all I want them to do is line up. I want the left and the right to line up, so it looks like I need to go about in between those two. Okay, right there. So I'm just pressing on the left one real hard to make a good indentation, and the right side matches up, so I know I've got it now. Let's try a swept back 1/2 inch bowl gouge here, just to cut out the bulk of it. I don't need much, about 1/8 of an inch. This is what this tool looks like. It's got this slight bevel here. The idea is just to push it into the left, push it in sideways, to create the dovetail recess. And I believe I've got it. As far as the rest of it, I think we're about as good as we're gonna get. I don't see any tool marks. So I think this is ready to be sanded. Stand by for sanding. I'm gonna start by sanding the bark with my Sandoflex sander. In reverse. The only way I can sand forward is to stand on this side. What that does is just cleans the bark up, takes off the rough edges, but it leaves it in place and basically untouched. It doesn't look like it's been sanded or anything. And then I will switch to my 2-inch sanding discs, and I'll do that in reverse. Then I'll alternate with forward as well. And I'm starting with 80 grit, and I'll work up through 400, and I'll bring you back when it's time to put some finish on here. I've decided to go with Watco Danish oil as my finish for this piece. You want some entertainment? Go online and search for heat resistant finishes. Everybody's got an opinion, and it gets heated, and then it devolves into food safe finishes. Oh my gosh. And everyone thinks they're right, and no one will give an inch. I don't know if this is going to work for this or not. I simply don't know. It was suggested a couple of times. Of course, it was shot down right away. The truth of the matter is I don't care one way or the other all that much about it. It's a utility piece. It's not a beautiful, beautiful piece. It's not meant to never be touched. It's not artwork. It's always going to be under a pan or under a pot or under a dish, a bowl or something. Who cares? If it does dull, if the finish does get ruined, you can always apply more, or you can just say, who cares? Now with that said, I am trying to make it look nice, but it just won't break my heart if it gets ruined by a little heat. I don't think it'll get ruined. I think it'll be totally usable. Just might not look as good as it does the day it's brand new. So now this says to apply it liberally, like I am, and let it sit for 30 minutes, and then apply a second coat and let that set for 15 minutes, and then wipe it all off. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm a little worried about these cracks, and when I start spreading my jaws apart inside the recess, I don't want the cracks to worsen, just because I don't want the whole piece to fall apart. I don't really care about the cracks. I could have filled them. I'm not really about that all that much, especially for something like this. So I will come back out here in a half an hour and recoat, and I'll wipe it all off, and then it'll be time to turn this around and do whatever we're gonna do. Okay, the finish has dried, and I'm just gonna barely tighten the chuck and bring up my tailstock and press into the chuck so that I'm sure I've got a good, well-centered, well-seated grip. And I'm not going to apply too much pressure because of those cracks. So just enough, we hope. And then we'll do away with the tailstock. We're not going to need it. And I haven't quite worked out in my mind how I want to do this. I do have that woodworm screw to deal with. So my idea there is just to take a gouge and just open it up. Just make a recess in there, a gentle opening. And then we're going to put some beads on here. Probably just 2 or 3 beads. I'm not sure, don't have a lot of room. And I do want them kind of spaced out. So I haven't measured, I haven't really worked it all out. Well, I guess the first thing we do better be to flatten this. This is just a bandsaw cut on here. It looks fairly flat, but who knows. So I'm going to get my mask and face shield on, and I have my freshly sharpened 5/8 inch bowl gouge, and we're just going to come across here and flatten this out. Be turning at about 1100 RPM. I just want to have a look-see. I don't really feel much cutting going on. I guess it is pretty flat. Let me try one more cut just to kind of smooth it out. I don't think I did much there. Oh yeah, looks pretty good. Okay, and I think I'm going to just use my hollowing tool to open this up. I don't want to come out here any further than I have to, but I need a gentle cove. We'll just see how it goes. And that's exactly what I had in mind When I mounted this up, or when I was thinking about mounting this up, I thought about using a glue block so that I wouldn't have this. But then I thought, well, it might make a nice design element. So now we're going to come over here. We're going to leave a space and then make a cove, and then a space and a cove. And I don't know. Maybe that's all we're going to get is 2 coves out of here, or 2 coves and 2 beads is what I mean. I thought I would use the detail tool to create this cove over here, which I guess is about there, kind of splitting the difference between the top of my bead, the bottom of my cove, about here. Now I need to be about the same size on this side. I'll probably grab a gouge here in a minute. 3/8 inch bowl gouge. I'm going to reverse the lathe so that I can work over here. I don't know if I've ever done that in my life. I don't think so. I can't really see what it is I'm doing. My cove is ending up bigger than my bead, I can tell you that. Maybe I should leave that one alone for a minute and make this cove here a little bigger, a little wider. It's just awkward is all. I know these have to be higher than anything else, I know that. Well, this one doesn't have to be. This has to be higher than everything else. This one has to be lower, because that's not really supposed to be a bead. I knew it, you know. Anytime you think, oh, this will be a piece of cake, this is going to be easy, don't ever say that, because that's just wrong. So I've got a cove, not a very good one. So then this needs to be a bead. I need to work on my cove a little more, the side of the bead. Well, this is not exactly, well, it's generally what I had in mind, but I wanted these to be the same size, but actually it looks pretty good. Big one on the outside, then smaller, even though it's not supposed to touch this one, and it doesn't. But it touches here and it touches here, so that's good. All right, well, boys and girls, stand by for sanding. So then I started wondering, well, how am I going to sand this? I don't want to sand flat. I mean, this could be flat out here, but with my 2-inch sanding disc, I'd almost positively run onto this, and I don't want that. So I'm going to use my Sandoflex, because it'll do all of this. It'll do everything, and it'll get down into the bottoms, and it'll get the tops, and it'll get the sides. It'll get it all. So I'm going to use this for a while. I'm going to start with 80 grit, and I have up through 180, and then I think I'll switch to handheld sanding strips. So let's see how this is going to look. Get my mask on here. I'll turn about 300 RPM. I can also sand in reverse just by sanding on this side. Yeah, I think that's going to work pretty well. Oh yeah, it's already getting smooth, and that's at 80 grit. So I'll do that up through 180, and then I'll bring you back and we'll figure out how to sand the rest of it with just sanding strip. Now I'm going to start with 150 grit, even though I've already gone up to 180. I want to drop back to 150. I see a few tool marks in here that I didn't get. They're very small. And I guess I'll just go like that. So I'll be working at that up through 400, and I'll bring you back when it's time to put some more Danish oil on this side. Well, the sanding went pretty well, so now it's time to apply the oil. And again, this is Watco Danish oil. It's kind of a shame to waste, well, I guess I'm not wasting it. I'm saving it, aren't I? This piece of cherry. Normally I would put probably sanding sealer and shellac on here, on cherry. Really brings out the grain. And this oil, you know, it might look nice right now while it's wet, but it doesn't look so great after it's dry and wiped off. And it looks, I mean, it looks okay. It's still cherry, but a nice hard shiny or semi-shiny finish would be my preference. But I just don't think that would hold up to heat. And I do think this will pretty well. And as it fades with use, it's easy to just reapply it. So this is what we've got. So again, just like the bottom side, I'm going to apply this coat, wait a half an hour, come out and apply a second coat, wait 15 minutes, wipe it off, and because I used a recess, we'll be done. Normally I remove recesses because I just don't like to leave any evidence of how I held a piece. But in this case it's just a utility piece, not a piece of art. It just isn't that important to me. So I will leave the recess, so we'll be done here in just a little while, about an hour. Not bad for an end of log cutoff. Waste not, want not. I'll see you back here in just a little bit. Well, there it is. One live edge trivet. And I think it turned out pretty well for what it is, huh? Now remember, this was a cutoff. Just cut off from the end of the log. It used to look like that. And I just cut it off because there were some splits and checks and whatnot. And I actually had it in my scrap box. And I was looking for something to turn, and this happened to catch my eye. And so now we have a trivet. And when you want to pick it up, because of the design of the edges, it's easy to get your fingers under here and just pick it up. It's not flat. It has a raised area. So easy to get your fingers under there. Easy to use. If you like this video, thumbs up please. If you'd care to comment, your comments are always welcome and I respond to all of them. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos, about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.